Chapter 10 The Master of Time Om Kala Swarupaya Namaha. Past is past, it can't be recalled. Future, you are not sure of. The given moment is now, present. This present is omnipresent. Baba. Several years ago, a lady called Sakamma lived in Prashanti Nilayam. One day she questioned Baba. Swami, in the battlefield at Kurukshetra, the Kauravas ranged enormous forces fully armed and ready to fight. In such a situation, how was it possible for Bhagavan Sri Krishna to recite to Arjuna the Bhagavad Gita, consisting of as many as 700 slokas? As Sri Krishna took his own time and Arjuna listened, ignoring the enemy's threat, how did the enemy keep quiet? Swami did not answer her question there and then. That evening, Swami, along with several of his devotees, went as usual to spend time on the sands of river Chitravati. The devotees sat around Swami. Sakama too was among them. Swami thrust his hand into the sand, and as the curious devotees watched with wide open eyes, he slowly pulled out a foot-long gleaming white ivory figure. It showed Lord Sri Krishna sitting on a chariot and exhorting Arjuna with Gita. The image was extraordinarily minute in detail and of exquisite craftsmanship. Sakama in particular was staring at it with open-mouthed wonder. Swami explained. How many days will ordinary mortal take to carve this beautiful ivory image? How many hands will be required to accomplish this intricate carving? How many artists would be required to make the initial design and to prepare detailed plans? But do you see how it has materialized in all its splendor just in a trice the moment Swami wills it to be? If God has the will, He can dominate time and control it. What would take several months for man, I have abridged into just a moment. In like manner, it is also possible to elongate time by divine will. On the day I gave the Gita to Arjuna in the battlefield, I created in his mind all the time needed. I also abridged it to a few moments for the rest of the troops on the field. Time is within the complete control of Sri Satya Sai. He can abridge it and elongate it at his divine will. He abridges time. Here is an instant where a period of several years were abridged by Swami in just an hour. There was a Christian student in Colombo, Sri Lanka. He came to India for college education and got himself enrolled in the Madras Christian College, Madras, Chennai. One day he went to the Sri Ramakrishna mission. He was very much attracted by the image of goddess Kali, which Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had worshipped. Gradually, he became a devotee of goddess Kali. He received initiation. He would meditate deep and long on the Devi mantra. Eventually, he reached that stage when he would remain for hours and hours in samadhi. Spiritual trance, a state in which the meditator suspends connection between body and soul. Afterwards, he even converted to Hinduism and took to sannyas, renunciation. Sometime later, he traveled to Colombo to visit his mother. The poor lady mourned in grief on seeing her son in the garb of a Hindu sannyasi. She knew that her son would never think of marriage and reconciled herself to it. But she very much desired her son at least to give up his Hindu monk's dress and adopt that of a Christian father. The son declined to do so. He gave up his mother as well as possessions and returned to India, and in due course reached Puttaparthi. Swami invited him into the interview room. An hour passed. Suddenly there was a loud cry from inside the room. "Oh, mother!" This was so loud that everyone gathered on the veranda outside could hear it. A little later, Swami opened the door of the room and out walked the Shakti devotee bathed from top to toe in holy vibhuti. What transpired inside the interview room? It seemed that after admitting him into the room, Swami materialized a big forest and directed the man to walk into it. The sannyasi just walked and walked and walked endlessly. Without stopping for rest, he walked on and on amidst huge trees for several days. He covered miles and miles and walked for decades and decades. Then suddenly Swami ordered him stop, turn around and look behind. The sannyasi stopped, turned around and stood transfixed. What did he see? The same goddess Kali whom he had so ardently worshipped ever since childhood was standing right in front of him in all splendor. For several years, the sannyasi had been wishing that he should remove himself to remote forests to spend long years there in meditation. Swami fulfilled that deep urge within the span of an hour. He had desired to perform penance for many, many years, but Swami abridged that also to less than an hour. In addition, Bhagavan vouchsafed him the darshan of goddess Kali that he had been yearning for. When his most ardent wish was so beautifully fulfilled, the sannyasi could not hold himself back but cried out in ecstasy, O Mother! On hearing this cry, which emerged out of the inner recess of his heart, Bhagavan responded in melodious voice, My dear man, there is no need for intense penance in this Kali Yuga. It is sufficient if you remember your favorite deity's name and incessantly intone it mentally. Only through Namasmaranam will you attain fulfillment. So saying, Swami materialized copious vibhuti, poured it all over the delighted youngster, and blessed him. He elongates time. We now come to the incident when Bhagavan Sai Baba extended a time span of 30 days to 30 years. Lal Bahadur Shastri was the Prime Minister of India then. His personal assistant was Tyagaraj. When he had some health problem, he went to Bangalore for a medical checkup. After thoroughly examining him, doctors diagnosed him as a cancer patient and declared his life expectancy to be just 3 months. They also told him, Sir, if you do not mind, we have a suggestion. There is only one remedy for your disease, and that is to pray at the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba and request him to save you. There is no other way. Dr. S. Bhagavantam, Baba's devotee, is presently right here in this hospital. Swami is coming here tomorrow to visit him. You may avail of this excellent opportunity. But Tyagaraja declined the advice. He added, I am the personal assistant to the Prime Minister of India. I do not need to fall at the feet of any Baba. I can afford to get proper medical treatment anyway. He followed his own counsel and went here and there for medical help. After 2 months, he returned to the same hospital and got himself examined once again. Sure enough, doctors declared that he would live only for another month or so. Tyagaraj was now in a desperate hurry to reach Puttaparthi. As he waited for darshan, Swami approached him and said, Cancer? Poor Tyagaraj burst into tears and fell at Swami's lotus feet. Swami materialized Vibhuti, placed it in his hands, and told him to eat it. This was done for 3 consecutive days. On the third day, Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai said, Cancer is cancelled. Needless to add, subsequent medical tests confirmed no trace of cancer on Tyagaraj. This incident happened 30 years ago. Tyagaraj served in the office of Sanadana Sarathi in Prashanti Nilayam. Tyagaraj served in the office of Sanadana Sarathi in Prashanti Nilayam until recently. Presently, he is doing service in the canteen in Prashanti Nilayam, savoring the unbounded benevolence of Swami. The extraordinary case of Tyagaraj demonstrates Bhagavan Sai's control and command. That is why in the Satya Sai Ashtottara Shatanamavali, that is why in the Satya Sai Ashtottara Sahasranamavali, the 1008 attributes and names by which he is worshipped ritualistically, we find him addressed as Kalaya Namaha, Kala Kalaya Namaha, Kalantakaya Namaha, Kala Swarupaya Namaha. Salutation to him who is time, who regulates time, who destroys time, who is the very embodiment of time. Time and space bind me not. Baba was once on a visit to Venkatagiri and was about to return to Puttaparthi. An old lady, an ordinary resident of Prashanti Nilayam, was at that time in her native village by the name of Vayalpadu, situated on the Venkatagiri Puttaparthi road. So she thought she would pray to Swami to break the journey at Vayalpadu and visit her home. She ascertained the day of Swami's departure from Venkatagiri. On that day, she stood by the road waiting patiently for Swami's car. She also persuaded other villagers to keep day and night vigil at that spot, but the car made no appearance. Then she came to know that Swami had meanwhile reached Prashanti Nilayam. Deeply disappointed, she too returned to Puttaparthi. She found Swami on the veranda of his upper floor residence talking to some persons on the ground. She pushed herself forward and, without stopping for breath, asked loudly, Swami, our villagers and I stood on the wayside near Vayalpadu waiting for you. We kept day and night vigil. When did your car pass by our village? How did you arrive here? Amused at her excited manner, Baba burst into laughter. Everybody was looking up at Swami, but suddenly they heard his laughter just by their side. Swami was standing by their side, still laughing. There was no Swami in the veranda high above. None could understand how and when Swami came down from the upper floor to the ground. Swami told the old lady, Look, you have seen how I have come down from the upper floor to the ground floor. If I can do this, could I not, together with my car, arrive here right by your village, unseen by any of you? Aneka Rupa Rupaya, assuming numerous forms. Baba was in Kodaikanal with his devotees. Suddenly he jumped out of his bed, stood and shouted, Don't fire! As he said so, he fell on the bed. The body stiffened. Apparently, he had left his physical body. After an hour or so, the body moved. Baba opened his eyes, dictated an address in Bhopal, and directed that an express telegram be sent there stating, Don't worry, the revolver is with me, Baba. Swami Sachitananda pleaded, Swami, the post office staff will not accept the telegram if we mention the word revolver in the message. If we change it to instrument, they will not object. Swami agreed and modified telegram was duly dispatched. But the devotees could not make head or tail of the mysterious incident. A letter arrived from Bhopal 4 days later. Baba gave it to the devotees. On reading it, they were filled with surprise as well as happiness. What has exactly happened? There was a military officer in Bhopal who had served in the Second World War and distinguished himself. Despite this, he was not given due position in the statewide development programs underway because freshers were being preferred to old hands. Frustrated, he developed utter distaste for life. Added to this, his wife happened to be away in her parental home. There was no one who could console him and give wise counsel and get him out of depression. Under these circumstances, he decided to commit suicide. He test fired his revolver to see whether it was functioning all right. It performed well. He readied to kill himself with the second shot. Just as he was about to press the trigger, there in far off Kodaikanal, Swami suddenly shouted, Don't fire! At that precise moment in Bhopal, the door of the officer's room suddenly flew open. Standing at the door was his bosom friend and old college mate. He did not come alone. His wife too was with him. Behind them was the porter who was carrying their luggage. As soon as the officer saw them, he ran into his inner room, hid the revolver somewhere, and came out smiling to welcome their guest. The guest amused his old friend officer with cheerful conversation. He recalled several happy events in their college life. He relived pleasant memories of the carefree company they shared while in college many long years ago. He was quite vocal and entertaining. The lady also joined in and added to their joviality. The warmth and friendliness of the visitors soon drove away the officer's misery and restored his mental equanimity. The visitors soon noticed that the officer's wife was away, so they said that they wished to go to another friend's house. They also incidentally mentioned the other friend's address where they were planning to proceed. The officer tried to persuade them to stay on, but they excused themselves. Promising to come and stay on their next visit to Bhopal, they took leave of the officer. The officer now searched for the revolver hurriedly hidden a little while earlier. It was not found despite a thorough search. Suddenly he remembered Satya Sai Baba. Some time back he had gone to Puttaparthi and had Swami's darshan. His wife was a devout follower of Baba. So he concluded that this was all Baba's Leela. Locking up his house, he went in search of his college fellow at the address given to him. But he was told that no visitor had come there. Just as he returned to his home, an express telegram from Kodaikanal arrived. It read, Don't worry, the instrument is with me, Baba. On reading it, the officer was overcome with remorse. To express his gratitude, he wrote a detailed letter to Bhagavan. It is through that letter that Baba's devotees also learn about the full details of the incident. It is worthy to note that to save a devotee, Bhagavan assumed three human forms: the officer's friend and his wife and the porter, all of them simultaneously at the same event with profound significance. It also establishes, yet again, that time is under Swami's control. This is the meaning of the Vedic dictum Ekoham Bahushyam, the one willed to manifest into many, the incomprehensible. It happened around 1988. There were about 1,400 students in the hostel of Swami's College in Brindavan at Whitefield near Bangalore. Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai visited the hostel one night. The delighted students respectfully stood in his presence. Suddenly, the electricity went off. In the darkness, Swami moved quietly towards a boy and whispered to him in his ears, Atul, I will give you something. Hold your hand. The boy extended his open hand and Swami placed a laddu in it. He further whispered to the boy, Don't show it to anybody. Put your hand behind you. Suddenly, the electricity was restored. Bulbs came back to life. Atul looked around. Surprisingly, all the 1,400 boys assembled there were keeping their hands behind them. Everyone was having a laddu in his hand. That is Swami. We get astonished at the amazing Leelas. Our reasoning power abandons us. Tongues fails us. Mind refuses to function. Nothing can be understood. How can we comment upon, much less explain, such displays of Swami's divine sport? That is why it is said, Yato vacha nivartante aparapya manasa saha, meaning that the universal absolute cannot be reached or comprehended by the bodily senses or by mind. He arrives unnoticed. Muddanahalli is a small town that is located on the way on roadside from Puttaparthi to Bangalore. There is a Swami school there. In February 1993, the school was to celebrate its anniversary. Teachers and students invited Swami to grace the occasion, and Swami gave his consent. But on the given day, he did not come, even though the expectant teachers, students, and invitees waited and waited long for him. The cultural programs, children's dance, and other items were gone through without Swami's presence. In due course, even as everyone waited eagerly for Swami's arrival, the entire program was over. There was a cloud of disappointment casting a dark shadow over the celebration. Later, the photographs taken on the occasion were developed and printed. To everybody's astonishment, one of the photographs taken during the dance item showed Swami standing among the dancing children. Not only that, Swami was seen in that picture not at one single place but at five different places wearing a different dress at each place. Om Shri Satya Sai Parabrahmane Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. End of chapter 10. Om Shaishwaraya Vidmahe Satya Devaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat.